Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back to the Missy Money channel. I'm Missy and I'm a mom of 3 and the owner of Missy Money, a small business that specializes in minimalist and aesthetic cash stuffing essentials to help inspire and motivate you on your personal finance journey. Today's video, instead of being a cash stuffing video, is actually going to be a tutorial video answering one of the most common questions that I get on my cash stuffing videos, which is, can you use cards, credit cards and debit cards within the cash stuffing system? The answer to that is yes, and this tutorial video will focus on how you can leverage credit cards and debit cards within the system. If that sounds helpful to you, stay tuned. All right, so as I mentioned, this video is going to be a tutorial on how you can use cards within the cash stuffing system. The video is going to be broken out into 3 sections. So the first section will focus on how you can use credit cards within the cash stuffing system. The second section is going to be focused on how you can use debit cards within the cash stuffing system. And then the third section will show you how to use credit cards and debit cards together if you'd like the flexibility of using both types. So before we jump into part one note I just want to make is, of course, within the cash stuffing system, you are always welcome to just use cash for any single transaction directly from your cash envelopes. It's just that in today's world, I know that a lot of shopping is done online, and frankly, cards are just sometimes a more convenient method to pay. So you can always use cash for any single transaction, but I know that realistically, a lot of people need the flexibility of being able to use a credit card or a debit card or both within the cash stuffing system, and the system is built perfectly to enable you to do that. Now, one more note, in each tutorial section, I'm going to go through just a handful of examples of different transactions. These transactions are going to represent the types of transactions that you would have over the course of a month. I know for me personally, I have a lot more than 3 to 5 card transactions over the course of a month. And if you do, that's totally okay. I'm just trying to keep the examples to a minimum so this video doesn't stretch for 2 hours and lose your interest. So as I go through, know that no matter how many credit card transactions you're making, how many debit card transactions you're making, it's totally fine. You would follow the exact same process. All right, so let's jump into section number 1, which is using a credit card within the cash stuffing system. So again, I'm going to go through 3 example transactions just for the tutorial piece of this video, but know that it doesn't matter how many transactions you would have over the course of the month. So let's say that the first transaction that I have during the month is a $20 shopping transaction on Amazon. In that case, what I would do is I would go ahead and find my shopping envelope. And it's a $20 purchase, so I'm going to take my $20 from my shopping envelope and I'm going to move that over to my spent envelope. By doing that, I am moving the cash equivalent of the credit card transaction that I am making, so I know that I'm accounting for that purchase within my shopping envelope. So that means that I will have $20 less in my shopping envelope to pay, and that money is accounted for within my spent envelope. Let's say next I am making my, another few days have gone by and I make a grocery order for delivery, and that order is worth $100. So I would take $100 out of my grocery envelope and I'm going to go ahead and put that into my spent envelope as well, again, to represent that credit card transaction. The last example, let's say I had one more credit card transaction this month, and that was a $40 oil change. I don't have car maintenance within my weekly envelopes, so I need to go to my sinking fund folder to find my car maintenance envelope to pull $40 for my oil change. So let me find my car maintenance envelope, and I need to pull $40 out. 3, 4. And then again, same thing as before, I would take that $40 and I'm going to go ahead and put that into my spent envelope. And that represents that third transaction. Now, at the end of the month, my credit card bill for those 3 transactions is going to be $160, and that's just the total of the 3 transactions that I had. If I go into my spent envelope and count how much cash is in here, 120, 30, 40, 50, 60, it equals the total of my credit card bill. So what I would then do is at the end of the month, I'm gonna take the money out of my spent envelope and I'm gonna deposit it into the bank. And I'm gonna pay off my credit card in full right away. I'm not gonna wait until my due date because I just wanna get it paid off so my balance is zero. By paying off your credit card right away before or at the very latest on your due date, what that means is that you will not incur any interest or fees related to these 3 transactions that you made from the previous billing period. And so it's really important that at the end of the month, as soon as you deposit this in the bank, that you're paying off your card in full right away. But that enables you to use your card without any interest or fees tied to those purchases. So that is how you would use your credit card within the cash stuffing system. So in section 2, we're going to be talking about using a debit card within the cash stuffing system. Now, using a debit card is a little bit different than using a credit card because there's one step you need to take before you can start making debit card transactions. And that step is establishing a buffer. When you use a debit card, you are automatically pulling those funds from the account that your debit card's linked to. And so before we can start making transactions, we need to put money into that account to have as a buffer to help us make those transactions. So in this example, I'm going to say that I'm going to deposit $200 as a buffer in the account that's linked to my debit card. And I'm just going to hold that $200 as an ongoing buffer as I use this entire system. So that buffer will stay consistent for me over time. So once your buffer is established, let's say again, my buffer is $200. Now I can start making debit card transactions. So let's say in this example, my first debit card transaction is that I go with the family to get ice cream. And I pay with my debit card. So the cost of the ice cream is $20 for the family. So I would go ahead and pay with my debit card, and then I would come to my entertainment envelope and I'm gonna move $20 from my entertainment envelope back to my spent envelope. And that is just the cash representation of the debit card transaction that I just made. Now let's say a couple of days go by, I took the kids to the zoo and we picked up a snack at the zoo for $10. So in that case, again, I'm just gonna pay with my debit card at the zoo for convenience, but I'm gonna go ahead and come to my kids envelope, I'm gonna pull out $10, and again, I'm gonna come back to my spent envelope and I'm gonna put that $10 into my spent envelope. And then again, let's say several days go by, I'm towards the end of the month, and I need to make one more debit card purchase, and that's for $40 for some makeup. In that case, I don't have self-care or beauty as part of my weekly expenses, so I'm gonna go ahead and come over here to my sinking funds finder. I'm gonna find my self-care envelope, and I'm gonna take $40 out of self-care to cover that makeup purchase. And then again, just as I did for the other transactions, I'm gonna come over here and put that money into the spent envelope. So before these 3 transactions at the start of the month, I started with a $200 buffer. These 3 transactions totaled $70. So that means my buffer is now down to $130. What will happen is at the end of the month, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna unstuff my spent envelope. And in here, I have the $70 that represents the purchases that I made over the course of the month. I'm gonna deposit this back into that account that's tied to my debit card, which is gonna take my buffer from $130 back to $200, and then I'll be ready to start the next month with debit card transactions. Now, one of the questions that I get asked frequently is, how much should my buffer be? You'll want your buffer to equal at least your average number of debit card transactions that you make in a month. So what I recommend doing is look at your past 1, 2, even 3 months of debit card transactions, see how much that totals up to, and take an average and have that be your starting buffer. You can always move your buffer up or down over time if you need to, and as you're learning to use debit cards within the system, but you'll want it to be at least enough to cover your month's purchases on your debit card. So that is how you use a debit card within the cash stuffing system. All right, we're to part 3 of this video, which is about using credit cards and debit cards together within the cash stuffing system. So I know a lot of you are probably the same as me and you want the flexibility of using either a credit card or debit card depending on the transaction. So in this tutorial, I'm going to go through 5 example transactions. Some of them are going to be credit cards and then some of them are going to be debit card transactions. And then I'll talk about how you would reconcile those at the end of the month. So again, as I mentioned in the debit card section of this tutorial, when you use a debit card, you need to start with a buffer in the bank. And that's because when you use a debit card, your debit is automatically pulling the funds from the account that the debit card is tied to. So in order to use a debit card, you need to start with a buffer in the bank. In this example, I'm going to start with a $200 buffer in the bank. Okay, so let's say that my first example transaction for this month is that I make a $30 gas purchase on my credit card. So in that example, I would take $30 from my gas envelope and I would go ahead and put that into my spent envelope. And again, that's just representing the cash equivalent of the purchase that I made on my credit card. Okay, so now let's say a couple days go by and I take my little one to the doctor and I need to pay a $40 copay for that doctor visit. So because I don't keep health and medical within my variable expense wallet, I'm gonna go ahead and come over to my sinking funds. I'm gonna make that $40 copay purchase on my credit card, and then I'm gonna take $40 from my health and medical envelope. And then I would just move that $40 back again into my spent envelope. Okay, now let's say for the third example that, again, it's a few days later, I take the kids to the aquarium and I put all the costs associated with our aquarium visit, tickets, incidentals, whatever, on my debit card. What I would do is I would take $50 out of my kids' envelope, and again, I'm gonna put that back in the spent envelope. So no matter if it's a debit card transaction or a credit card transaction, how I move the money from my envelope back into my spent envelope is going to be exactly the same. So now again, let's say that it's a few days later, I have another credit card transaction, and this time I'm buying the kids clothes online and the total there is $40. Again, I don't keep my clothing envelope within my weekly wallet, so I would go ahead and go to my sinking fund binder. I'm going to find my clothing envelope and I'm going to take $40 out of my clothing envelope. Then I'm going to come back again to my spent envelope and I'll put the $40 into my spent envelope. Okay, and then let's say it's the end of the month. I have one last card transaction. This time I'm at the grocery store and I have $100 worth of groceries that I just want to pay with a debit card for convenience. Again, I can do that. I'm just going to come back after I make that purchase and I'm going to move $100 from my grocery envelope into my spent envelope. Okay, so now to recap, we've had 5 transactions this month. 3 of them have been credit card transactions totaling $110, and 2 of them have been debit card transactions totaling $150. Again, I started with a $200 buffer in the bank for those debit card purchases, so now my buffer is down to $50 in the bank. So I have spent a total of $260 across all 5 of those transactions. So if I come back to my spent envelope, I should have $260 in here. So let's check. 100, 150, 170, 190, 210, 230, 250, 260. So that matches the exact amount that I spent. Now I'm going to put this all into the bank. And the first thing that I'm going to do when I put this into the bank is I'm going to pay off my credit card. My credit card bill is $110. So out of this $260, when I put it in the bank, 110 of it is going to be allocated to paying off my credit card. That will ensure that I don't incur any interest or fees associated with any of those purchases that I made over the previous month. You'll just want to pay off your credit card right away and make sure that you're paying off your credit card before the due date. The remaining funds that I have is $150, and that matches the amount that I spent on my debit card. By depositing this $150 into the bank as well, what I'm doing is I am bringing my buffer that was down to $50 all the way back to $200. And as I replenish that buffer, then I'm all set to begin the next month's purchases on my debit card. So it's really that simple. That's it for how you use credit cards and debit cards together within the cash stuffing system. So hopefully this tutorial video was helpful for you. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, or you're interested in watching cash stuffing videos as well, I do post cash stuffing videos every single week, and every so often I will also post tutorial videos to answer frequently asked questions that I see in the comments section. So if that is you, you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button below to be notified when I post a new video. If you're following along on your own personal finance journey, as always, I wish you a simple budget, a calm mind, and a happy life. Thanks so much for watching.